The reason that I love to start with that question, one, it's a great conversation starter. It's fun to hear what you have things in common with people. But also, it's almost impossible to share a game you really like without sharing why you like it, and whether it's spending time with certain people, or you like challenging yourself in a different way, or you're competitive and you like to win and drive to improve yourself. That's something about your zone of excellence, or when you feel like you're the most you, and the best version of you, which is a really important thing to do. And it's also a really important thing to be able to harness at work. How can you understand what makes some people tick, what really inspires them, what gets them excited or feeling the most creative, and incorporate that into work to get that element of their performance, or to bring out some of the maybe hidden talents or strengths that they have. So I think it's just a good way to get people thinking, and also hopefully to get some game ideas. So what we're going to do today, three goals. One is sharing some basic frameworks and tips for how to connect games to really critical interpersonal skills that are really crucial in the workplace. We're going to play one of our games called Priorities to demonstrate how we connect the right game to the right situation. And then I'm going to share some of the resources that we have to help people incorporate more play into their work. Before we jump in, I just want to ask a question, quick show of hands. How many of you are in like the learning development related spaces? Coaching. Yeah, okay. A lot of people. How many of you work with leaders and teams? Lots of people. How many of you have ever felt like banging your head against a wall? Because as you're working with leaders, teams, as you're teaching, a small miscommunication or misunderstanding ends up blowing into something really giant that was so preventable and so predictable. See some hands, see some nods, see some knowing smiles. And how many of you have ever felt incredibly frustrated by the lack of self-awareness of someone that you're talking to? And like if they were just a little bit more self-aware, their problems would go away or be a lot less. Yeah. Um, Me too, to all of those. And that's where play is a really useful tool. It leverages the experiential learning cycle, which gets people more emotionally engaged in a situation and thinking about how they can change and where they can grow, and how to operationalize that, which is what's missing from a lot of learning and development right now. So there's a few different ways that you can use play. This is where I'm going to start before we dive into the game. Um, this is what we call the iceberg for obvious reasons. We're very visual people here at Barometer. And there's different levels of depth in the outcome that you can accomplish when you bring play into any type of group engagement. There's what people mostly think of as having fun, which we call bonding, team bonding. And that's where you're getting to know people, you're building that social capital. If you're playing with people that you work with, you're getting to see them outside of their normal roles and responsibilities and talk about things other than work, which is really important, especially once times get challenging and you need to help each other out in different ways. The next level down, where you're adding an element of reflection and application, is team building. And that's where you're specifically using the play to increase that self-awareness and start to bring up, how do different people show up in a game and why? What are elements of the situation? Is it about the game itself, the rules and parameters? Is it about the group of people? Is it that person's in a particular mood? But once you can start talking about what are those things that impact how we feel and how we act in any given moment, you could start to think more strategically about how do you relate to each other. And maybe if I'm going to pick on Jason for a second. If Jason and I are working together and we often feel like we're talking past each other, and all of a sudden I realize in the course of playing a game that, oh, Jason needs to have really clear rules and have a full understanding of the rules or the instructions or the goals before he can engage in a conversation, and that's why he never shares ideas. Well, then now I know that it's something that it's nothing wrong with Jason. It's something I need to do to communicate to make sure that I'm meeting his needs. And that's going to change how we work together going forward in a way that's not only going to improve the experience for both of us in the relationship, but probably the quality and the outcomes of the work as well. So we're using it to bring out those individual insights that are going to strengthen relationships. The bottom level team development is when the change, the learning you're trying to get at is at the group level. So you have a group of people playing together to try to get ideas of what could we do differently that would help us perform better. There's a lot of the same interactions people have to have, the way they have to think, the way they have to communicate within the game are very close parallels to how they do that at work. So there's a lot of takeaways that directly apply. I'll pause very quick if there's any questions about the iceberg. Everybody's with me so far. So thinking about what's the right level of depth that you're trying to get from a game as you bring it into, whether it's a social event, whether it's a training course or a retreat or a coaching engagement, it's important to figure out what's the right level of outcome that you're trying to get to. The next framework I'm going to share very quickly is what types of interactions are you trying to improve? What elements of culture or team performance or types of workplace challenges do you want to have a conversation about, whether they're pain points that you want to try to resolve or they're strengths that you want to fully explore and try to pull out some lessons from that you can apply to other areas of culture. So this is what we call the pressure matrix. It's these 9 dimensions of team culture that connect the individual experience of work and culture to the outcomes at the organizational level. If you're interested in this, we have a whole white paper that explains the matrix, and I'd be happy to share more, but just want to get into the playing pretty quickly. So there's all types of different mechanics and dynamics within games that connect to these different areas of culture. So you can pick a game that's going to spark the conversation that you're trying to have for the learning or change that you want to encourage. Everybody with me so far? Okay, excellent. Thanks. All right. So now we're going to play priorities, and we're going to do 2 different versions of it. It's a collaborative game. It promotes curiosity, how do other people think compared to how do you think? Active listening and collaborative decision making because you're working with a group. In the first round, we're going to be looking in that team bonding level. So just getting to know each other, having fun. And the scenario that we're thinking about as how this game would apply is it's a team that's had some turnover. So there's some new people who don't know each other really well. They're trying to form a shared identity, understand each other better so that they feel more comfortable going to each other for help, asking questions, working through challenging things, and are trying to improve how they think. So again, we're doing team bonding and the identity and belonging element of culture. So we're going to use Miro for this game, and I'm going to go through how it works at a high level first, and then Roddy is going to split us up into breakouts to play as groups. So in this game, for each round, there are 5 different cards that just have random words or phrases on them. Can you all see the Miro board, by the way? Mm-hmm. Excellent, thank you. So here we have the winky face emoji, soggy French fries, a rainy day, scary movies, and line dancing. How this works when you get into your breakouts is one person is going to secretly rank these items from which one they like the most to which one they like the least. So 1 is the one you like the most, 5 is what you like the least, and you're going to write it down on a piece of paper. And then everybody else in your breakout group is trying to figure out what order you ranked these in. So they're trying to figure out how you think and put themselves into your head. And I know you guys don't know each other, so you're going to have to make some assumptions. You're going to have to use some different deductive reasoning. And I'm going to share the link with the Miro board so that within your board, you can move the cards around as a group and try to arrange them in the order that you think the person ranked them in. So what I did was we'll have 5 breakout groups, and on Miro, there's 5 different boards that, so you'll just go to the one that corresponds to the number of your group. And we'll give you about 5 minutes because I want to make sure we have time to reflect and to do the second round of this. So hopefully you'll be able to get through it in 5 minutes. If not, we still have lots to reflect on and talk about. So any questions?
Can I just reflect back to make sure I got it? So one person will be up and then everyone else guesses what their order is, and then we switch to the next person.
We're just gonna have time to probably do one person.
Okay. Okay.
But yes, yeah, they're not ranking their own and comparing, they're trying to guess what that person
Okay.
ranked.
And
Yeah.
only based on assumptions, or can we ask questions? Like, yeah, is there talking or just guessing?
So there's a lot of deduction. I mean, what I like to do is maybe have the person who's ranking, for the first 30 seconds or minute or so, just like introduce them a little bit, not give anything away directly, but just share a few things about yourself. And then the group is talking with each other, conversing with each other, trying to figure out what the order is and trying to put themselves in that person's head, and ranking as you go through it.
So can the person after the introduction only not participate, basically just say, yes, that's it, or no, it's not? You can't ask them questions.
You are listening to how other people think that maybe you think. Yeah, it's which is pretty fascinating. Good questions. Other questions? Okay, I put the Miro link in the chat, so let me know if you're able to access that.
I don't see it in my chat.
I don't see it either.
Yeah, same.
That's because I forgot to hit send.
Also, I put this question in the chat, but are you assigning who's ranking priorities within the group, or we're just deciding amongst ourselves?
No, just decide amongst yourself. Yeah.
Okay.
Who's going to? Yep. Good question.
I'm gonna put everybody into breakout rooms. Are there any
and Rod, you'll set them up for 5 minutes.
Yes. Okay.
And if you want to have one person in each breakout share the screen with the group, and move the cards around so everybody doesn't have to, that's totally fine. Whatever works best for you. If you have some people in the group who haven't used Miro, that might be helpful. Just someone knows how to use it to move the cards around and handle the tech side.
Yeah, just a heads up, you have to create like a login and a password and verify.
Oh, you do?
Yeah, it emailed me a 6-digit code.
Oh, it was not supposed to do that.
Or if you have an account, about that. If you log in as well.
Yeah, hopefully there'll be somebody with Miro in every group.
Yeah, I just did it. It's pretty quick to do it.
Yeah, same.
Excellent. All right, any other questions?
Once you're in Miro, should it just be a blank, or should there be seeing something? Like I see a gray grid.
If you zoom out, like the little here at the bottom, if you zoom in and out, you'll know if you're on this board. Otherwise, maybe I'll just put a direct link to this board.
And I'm gonna name the groups so you'll know which board. Unless we're just using one group, one board.
It loaded now.
Oh,
now I see it.
Perfect.
Here's a question, and this might become obvious once we're in our groups and kind of figuring things out, but so we all kind of see the cards, and then the person assigned to do their ranking will do it off screen, basically, I guess. Mm-hmm. Okay, gotcha.
Yep. And then if you get to the end where you all decide on an order, then they can share and you can see how you did.
Gotcha.
And we'll hop around from room to room.
All right, let's open up the breakouts. See you in a couple minutes. Welcome back. Real quick, how was that?
Fun.
I see smiles. I see thumbs. We normally would spend a lot of time doing a reflection, but just do a quick, hear from a couple of people. What did that feel like for you as you were playing? If somebody wants to just unmute yourself and share.
Well, so for me, I had to focus on a couple things. One is the story, and two is the facial reactions. So that's all we had, right? So it was fun, interesting. Takes a little bit of time to set up though, because when you have 5 people in a room, trying to get the person to decide who's going to go takes up
Yeah.
2 of your minutes.
Yep.
I really liked how attached I got to my assumptions, like in terms of thinking, oh, this I really am invested in this being true. We're making a joke at the end when the session cut out. It's like, are you really sure that you feel that way? Like, I made this assumption, I need it to be true. Can't you change your mind about who you are? So I thought that was interesting how quickly our minds get invested, right?
Yeah, that's super interesting.
Well, and building off of that, I think because we don't know each other, it's hard not to project some of yourself into the train of thought and into the assumptions that you have to draw. And so it's hard, especially because you don't know the person who's making the rankings or the people you're deciding with. And so there's a lot of, oh, this is how I would interpret that. And this is how my logic works. But your logic apparently works very differently. And since we don't know this person at all, either or neither could be true here. And so kind of navigating those dynamics, I think, was really, really challenging and fun.
Yeah.
Yeah,
And that, I mean, that's one of the things I like about it is without really having to like go around and ask everybody questions, people just start sharing their own assumptions or preferences as that come up very naturally in the conversation, which takes some of the pressure off.
I'm a huge fan of the big reveal, like getting to really understand how the cards played out for someone brought me a lot of joy. I think the thing that I noticed about myself when I'm speaking sometimes is that I can speak with so much conviction. And so that is also something kind of fun to recognize. Oh, this is something that I do sometimes in group situations.
Yes. And Nina, that's the perfect. So there's the initial, how did people experience? What did it bring out? But then what did you notice? Not so much about the game itself, but how you showed up, what perspectives or skills or ideas it brought up within you, and how what some behavioral patterns about yourself that brings up and how you can better leverage those for good. I love that insight. So we're talking about the context of playing this with a team that experienced some recent turnover. They don't know each other really well. They're just looking to build some comfort, start to form that shared identity. Any thoughts on how this game would work in that type of setting?
Could you repeat that question again? Sorry.
Yes. We were talking about using this in the context of it's team bonding. It's a group of people, they haven't worked together before, they don't know each other really well. And so this would be a game to help them start to form that shared identity, start to build that comfort with each other.
Awesome. Thank you.
So Alex, would you do multiple rounds? Would everyone get a chance to be the predictor or the decider, or is it once and then we have general discussions? Oh, I like this versus that, or how do you normally play that?
I like to do multiple rounds. If that means you have to split the group up into two, so that everyone gets a turn, you can do that. The second round we're going to have a slightly different dynamic, where you wouldn't necessarily everybody wouldn't need a chance to be the person. Yeah. And you would have different words, in each round. So it's not all the same words. Yeah, MJ.
Yeah, I think the one thing to be cognizant of is if there's turnover in the team, like new versus established relationships, and how in that game we become, well, I know this person, so I'm going to oversee how it's ordered versus the people who don't have those connections. So just in terms of like group dynamics and how you split people up, that would be important to consider probably.
Yeah. The one thing that comes up a lot that I think is very fascinating is you don't always necessarily do better with people you know really well. Because like I've known Roddy for 6 years now. I have no idea how he feels about rainy days or French fries. and so I can come up with some assumptions, but somebody who doesn't know him might get the order. So it's always interesting to see that dynamic and what kinds of assumptions you make and how correct they are.
Yeah.
Yeah, I wanted to say, like, I think in debrief, it would be very cool to talk about if it was a mixed group of people who do and don't know each other, talking about how those expectations played out, right? A new team member versus an existing team member, because often when we work with somebody a lot, we just run on auto, right? We're just, we think we know them, we think they know their preferences. And even something that's, as what I think should be defining as a human is not liking soggy French fries, but that could be a point that could come across and be discussed. So I think it's cool for examining assumptions.
Yeah. And that's, I mean, one of you hit the nail on the head on why games are just such a great, almost Trojan horse into having some of those conversations. Because it's the shared experience, there's some fun or whimsy about it, but then you can get to deeper dynamics. Do Megan, and then we're going to move on to the second round.
No, I was just, it's repetitive. We just did it with Joey, and he's in the UK. And so we were making all kinds of assumptions about he's used to rainy days. He likes his fries soggy because of chips and fish and chips. We were making all kinds of assumptions just based on the fact that he's in the UK. And it's interesting, right? Like,
Yeah. Yeah. And for a lot of people, the idea of assumptions is still like this intangible sort of hypothetical thing, but this is a way to bring out pretty benign assumptions, but sort of show how they do impact the way that we think all the time. Yeah. Excellent. Yeah, Joey, real quick.
Yeah, and on that, like if it could be used for people who have teams that are across different cultures, different countries. It could be a really interesting way if like set up properly, like at the beginning, which is like people are going to make assumptions, and that's okay. The point is for them to get it wrong so that people aren't offended. It actually could be a really good way of learning about a different culture when you're saying, whoa, I didn't realize people in X country or X culture love the rain or something, or again,
Right.
but not obviously everyone there would love it, but that person. So that there's an opportunity there if set up in a strategic way, I think.
Yeah, I love that. Thanks. Okay, so for the next round, we're going to use it a little bit differently. This would be for more of team development and trying to do some sort of culture change. So let's say you're working with a team and things haven't been going that well. There's been some issues and you want to think, okay, I want to take action on this, but I don't want to decide that unilaterally. I want to get feedback on what I think, what would be the most helpful. What are some changes we can make to our culture, to the way that we do things? So it's that team development level, and you're talking about capacity and tools. What sort of structures can we put into the workplace that are going to make things better and make people feel more set up for success and engaged in their work? So go back to some quick housekeeping here and move all of these cards away. And with this next set of cards, the words all have to do with culture. They're all things that can be implemented in the workplace that would affect how people experience their work. So for this round, if I can get 5 volunteers and everyone else will be observers, and within those volunteers, one person will think about which order they like these things, or what order you think that they would be the most valuable for improving team culture, and everyone else will have that conversation, try to guess. So it's not random words, it's words that are very particular to a conversation that you want to have. Are there 5 volunteers that would be willing to be? I see Nina, Aaron, Bailey, Scott, one more, and Russell. Perfect. I'm gonna pin. Oh, actually, we're sharing the screen, so it doesn't matter about as much. Okay, which one of you wants to be the person ranking?
I'll rank.
Perfect. All right, Scott, and let us know when you're done, and your teammates can start deliberating. And everybody else just think like, what are you noticing in how they work together and how the conversation is going? What types of dynamics or decision making or communication styles are coming up?
I'm ready.
All
Do I
right.
need, do I need to describe myself a little bit? Is that what's next? Or not?
Sure. Just do like a quick 30-second
Yeah.
introduction.
Most of my work is developing trust and building teams. It is working with senior executives, getting them to recognize their command and control leadership style will no longer work, and that they're going to have to make the adjustments and not try to force the younger people to adjust to them.
Right. And as you're deliberating, I'll move the cards around so you don't have to worry about that. You can just do the conversation. So, all right.
Well, I will say in my experience with kind of leadership coaching, direct in the moment feedback is usually highly favored. So I would be inclined to keep that kind of high on the list of things that he probably likes.
I like that too. He did say he's not into command and control. I wonder how you all feel about where he would put consensus decision making. I think sometimes it can get challenging if you have too many people making a decision, but he also sort of said he was against the kind of command and control. So it made me think that maybe it's at least like 2 or 3.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I would feel good about putting it like 3. And I'm guessing communicating via Slack and Teams might be lower on the list. I feel like that's usually, in terms of like building trust among teams, isn't the most effective way to do that usually. So yeah, I would keep that kind of lower or maybe lowest on the list.
I really like lunch and learns simply because they are in person. Although it will depend on like, is this required or is this something that is like, we come together to kind of learn something together. So I think there's some context around that. So I would say there's some team building within that, depending on the contextual nature of that particular
Yeah.
card.
I feel like often with lunch and learns, people are like, oh, okay, I have to do this too. Or it depends on what is being presented, right? If it is something fun, if it's actually interactive and connecting. I don't know, just with the like little bit we've got from him, it's hard to tell on the lunch and learns. Short meetings can be short because people are communicating honestly and effectively. Or they can be short because there's the command and control thing, which is obviously not his bag. I think the first 2 are in the right places. I don't know, they might be switched, but
Yeah,
it seems like the 1 and 2
I think I
slot.
might be inclined to switch short meetings and lunch and learns. I think based on, again, given my experience, lunch and learns can be a real crapshoot in terms of how effective they are, how meaningful they are. They're kind of at minimum nice kind of bonding time. Often I feel like the lunch overtakes the learn in my experiences. Short meetings, to Russell's point, can be short for a variety of reasons, but usually force kind of some decision making and some action in a way that longer meetings can kind of get buried in discussion. So my hunch is he would prefer short meetings to lunch and learns.
Let's try this. I don't know that we're going to get any better with a guess.
All
Yeah,
right,
I'm
go
good
with
with
this order.
lineup, I think.
I'm comfortable with this. I think it could be fun to interrogate him more. Like to ask if we had like, I know it's short on time, but if we had 3 questions, right, that we could refine our idea with, right?
Totally.
I'm
Russell,
happy
you
with
are
it.
already thinking like a play facilitator of like what are little tweaks you can make to the structure of the game that would get a better outcome. And that's one of the things I think is so great about experiential learning is there's so many opportunities to be creative and customize it for what a group needs.
Definitely.
All right, so let's see how well you were able to get into Scott's mind.
Well, likes the least, you've got nailed. The Slack and Teams is number 5. So number one would be consensus decision-making. And only because the word direct in the moment, in front of in the moment feedback can lead to a little bit of that command thing. So consensus decision-making is one. Two is direct in the moment. Third is lunch and learns. And fourth is short meetings. And those could have been interchangeable. The reason of lunch and learn is because I think what we're learning there is each other more so than the content. So that's why I like them.
Mhm.
I feel like we did pretty good.
You did pretty
Yeah.
good. Yeah.
Yeah, a lot of the rationale was spot on. It just, you know, it's kind of arbitrary. Some things 2 or 3.
That's right.
So
Well-
I'm curious to hear, you know, what you thought of that as a way to have a conversation about something that's, you know, something that's culture change, or so it might be a harder conversation to just have in a less structured or more traditional way. Yeah,
I'll share
Jason.
something. So one of the things I noticed is almost any one of those things based on the story that Scott told, you almost could have justified it being at one end or the other, just on how you interpret it. So if we take these as assumptions of like, well, I know Scott because he likes this, he must like this, we're likely to be wrong. And there's no way to know what people prefer unless we ask them. This becomes a nice, fun way to ask.
Yeah, I love that.
I really appreciate how the game leads you to have a different conversation than you would have if you got those 6 people together and asked them, hey, which of these should we be doing on our team? Because then you would hear each person, you know, sharing their opinion and their perspective, and louder voices would you know, it just kind of interrupts a typical team conversation in a pretty novel way. And I think gives you a chance to really try on someone else's brain for an extended period of time in a way that we don't often do. So it made me really interested to try it on our team, where we sometimes assume we agree, I think, on things where we may not actually.
Or maybe it's uncomfortable to say that you agree in a regular setting, but in this, it's not really saying you agree or disagree. It's just, well, here's how I would think about it. Yeah,
I like
I
the
love that.
interpretations of those things and the nuances between them, and listening to the people's point of view. Here's what I'm thinking, as opposed to here's what we need to do, which is what you might do without the game.
Mhm.
So
Yeah.
that was good.
Yeah. I want to get to Bailey's comment in the chat, and then we'll go to Dawn and then move on. Bailey, you're right. The deeper down the iceberg you go, the more time you need to have for the reflection and the debrief, and then the application. Because you had this conversation, but how will you actually use it? How will this be implemented? Both individually, what are people going to feel more accountable for? You know, things that they can do a little bit differently, but also as a group. Okay, so we've agreed we're going to start doing you know, we're going to change our meeting structure. We're going to change how we do feedback. And that's something we all agree to after this. Yeah, Dawn.
I think it was interesting too, to think about and to point out to the group, when you're doing it on your own, it was our job to think about what Scott's perspective is and how quickly we can all go, well, my perspective, but is that my perspective on me? Is that my perspective on Scott? Like, what are you asking people to do? Are you asking to give your perspective? Or are you trying to put yourself in Scott's shoes and have that empathy? And so I think that's a nuance of how you could facilitate that activity in that way, depending on what you wanted to get from people.
Yeah. Yeah, you could have everybody do their private ranking and then have a discussion about what they think one person would do. Well, then all of you at the end, which would be an interesting variation. Listen, I wish we had more time to debrief, but I want to be respectful of your time. So the last thing I want to share is, you know, we're really focused on how do we get more people feeling comfortable bringing play into the work that they do. So I just want to talk a little bit about what Barometer does. For people like most of you who are facilitators, coaches, instructors, we have a bunch of different resources to help you feel more comfortable using games. We have a play facilitator certification. That's a really fun program that breaks down how do you set up a play experience? How do you connect the right game with the right outcomes? How do you pick the right reflection questions? Melissa and Val, who are both here, both went through the program, and reach out to them if you want to hear about their experience. We have, for that pressure matrix I sent, the 9 different dimensions of culture. we have a really quick team assessment. It's like a pulse check to see across the team, how do people experience their culture? How aligned are they? How misaligned are they? What do they see as the strengths? What do they see as the pain points, so that you can plan the right intervention or set up the right conversations to have and pick the right games. We also have a new platform that we're about to launch that's basically a database of games that you can search by all types of mechanics and dynamics and team characteristics. And then we also do facilitation. We'll bring games, either designing the program or working with you to just bring a game into a program that you already have, or a client that you're already working with, or a course that you're doing, to help bring more experiential into that. That's it. Happy to stay on and answer questions. I'll send a follow-up email with contact information if you want to set up a conversation. I hope that you found this fun and interesting, and I hope you use priorities in your work somehow.